I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, are you concerned about a looming recession in Canada?
It is worrisome, especially for us young people.
I am not concerned about a looming recession.
I think we're in for a nosedive.
I don't like to worry about stuff like that. I think that everything always works out somehow.
But first, Canada's labour market has been experiencing an historic labour shortage. A labour survey by the Canadian manufacturers and exporters say the manufacturing sector has lost roughly $13 billion in the last year. And this is because of production delays due to the lack of workers. The retail sector is also facing labour challenges as we head towards a busy holiday season. And the federal government says it's looking towards immigration to ease the strain. But will that be enough? Our question. What is the best way to combat a labour shortage in Canada?
I don't know. I think people will get back to work. The pandemic has caused a lot of problems, a lot of different things like that. But I think we're over it. People start to get back to work and get back to a normal life.
For me, it would apply not only to Canada, but the US and even my old country back in the Philippines, that when times are difficult, I think you should borrow money, do all the public works. The roads are in bad state all over Canada. We need bridges, we need improvements in airports and ports. So just borrow the money, get that done, and when things get better, I think it'll be easier to do business and invite foreign investors.
Immigration, training. I think training, we have a huge First Nations community that I think should be trained in all kinds of trades. Those are, I think, your only two options.
I think the best thing, like people become invested in the place where they work if they have shares in the place where they work. So if your business is doing well, that should reflect on your employees' income. And I think the government can help and give businesses incentives to do that. So that would be my approach.
I feel that in order to combat a labor shortage, we should be allowing more immigrants into the country. People that want to promote their skills and be recognized for the skills they've had in their homeland in order to fulfill much needed work shortages in Canada.
I would say to raise up the pay. I don't think that there's pay is enough for like the rental rates or for food costs that are going up, and there's just so much that's going on right now. So yeah, definitely raising the hourly pay. Yeah.
I think a lot of labor jobs don't come with benefits. And so just adding those would be obviously beneficial to everybody. People would get their labor. Laborers would have reason to go to those jobs aside from wages, which, I mean, a lot of people will make close to that on unemployment or welfare or whatever. A lot of people cheat the systems, but the benefits would be, I think, would weigh hugely in the difference of our labor rates.
No incentive to get back to work.
Yeah.
We need more incentive to get back to work. So that could be a couple things, like you said, certainly the money issue, and maybe some of the wages need to be increased. I mean, look at our medical field. It's terrible what we pay our healthcare workers and even our first responders. So maybe increasing wages.
For there, I would probably go with incentives for certain jobs. To encourage people to do certain tasks because they're not all wanted, you know.
Interesting enough, I'm part of Generation X. So looking at the younger generations, a lot of them feel unvalued, and they're really, through social media sharing information around what value looks like in today's society. And to address the labor shortage, I think that companies really need to get on brand and really provide a full circle reality to its employees. Some of that is healthcare, benefits, higher wages. Again, going back to what you were talking about earlier about how do we address inflation, how do we address the current reality that we find ourselves in where we're being priced out of our lives, is really comes down to creating an equitable workplace.
Say higher immigration is probably a good thing, but you got to get the ducks in order, have the housing first. So we're kind of caught in a pickle now where we brought in a lot of people, but at the same time we have to meet that housing demand. And how are we going to do that? We need more skilled laborers. Very difficult question.
You know, even in my field, I'm in the construction industry. It's really hard to fill a spot, and you know, you walk around town and there's signs for jobs and employment just about everywhere. But I think the problem is we really need to work towards paying a living wage so that people can sustain themselves. I mean, you know, to ask someone to, you know, spend 6, 7 hours of their day at minimum wage and, you know, they have to run around to 3 or 4 jobs doesn't really create the freedom that we have as Canadians for the majority of us. So, yeah, we need to pay a living wage to people.
Well, I guess, you know, immigration could be a way, right? I think there's like probably a lot of talented and competent people wanting to live in Canada and be able to contribute to our economy. So I would think that could be something that could be explored.
Yeah, maybe being more lax on labor laws, immigration. Yeah, in that sense, I don't have the solution, but something needs to be done.
It's a tough problem to tackle.
We've been officially warned that tough times lay ahead this winter as a recession is expected to happen as early as the first quarter of 2023. To combat inflation, the Bank of Canada has raised the interest rate 6 times since March, with a warning of more to come. A recession means it will cost more for goods and services. It will mean more trouble for people trying to find employment. It will cost more to borrow. And for those people starting up a business, it will be tougher because Canadians are spending less money. So, are you worried about what the new year will bring? Our question.
Are you concerned about a looming recession?
Yes, sure. There seems to be a lot of speculation about it at this point. I mean, we've already seen like enormous price increases for pretty much everything related to the cost of living. So looming seems almost a little bit too late. Like if we're not in it now, then I'm not sure how much worse it can get really. But
I'm concerned if there is one. I am hopeful that it's a short-term peak that is because of what's happened through the pandemic and I'm hopeful that we can use some tools to get us out of it really quickly, and then we don't have to worry about it.
You know, we've already gone through a couple of years of hard time, and this is not going to end right now, and so then we add a recession on top of it. It's just going to make it worse. So we've got another year anyway of hard times. We should be concerned.
I'm not, because I don't like to worry about stuff like that. I think that everything always works out somehow. I mean, I know that there might be tough times ahead, but I'm not too worried. It'll get figured out.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned, but it's something that we're going to have to address and just suck it up until we can get through it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it, and prices go up for everything. So it is worrisome, especially for us young people trying to buy houses soon and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's happening everywhere. So I listen to all of that is going on across the world. So everything that I'm listening to there is one. I still see people spending. I do work in a boutique, so I still see people spending. The government workers still have employment. But in general, from day to day, where people like my neighbors are saying, absolutely, you choose one piece over another. I can have this, but I can't have that now. So it has changed, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're in for a nosedive. I'm optimistic, though, I think over the long run. My biggest concern is people that can't buy houses, affordable housing and food. I think overall that's going to be a major problem unless we get a handle on it and be responding to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious we're heading in that direction, you know, with the higher interest rates. It's in my industry, we're already seeing a downturn in work and projects, and it's going to affect us. But if the recession succeeds in calming, you know, the costs of things down, then I'm all for it. It won't hurt if it goes on for a little while.
Personally, I think it needs to happen because inflation is just
so much right now, especially for a lot of the majority of people. And it would be nice to see something happen to slow the process down, especially if you're looking to maybe build something. If for me personally, we're hoping to build a garage, so a little bit of a recession might be better for us, and in that situation, so we're not overpaying for something that would be outrageous right now. But that's just my own personal opinion.
I am not concerned about a looming recession, mainly because I own my home and property. I have enough property to sustain my life in the middle of nowhere where I live. So if the rest of the country goes under, I'll still be fine.
I would say no, I'm not concerned. And if we will fall into a recession, I think it's going to be soft and I think it's going to be short. I think that there's too many companies out there that are worth a lot of money and that's not going to change because of recession. So I'm not worried, but we are fortunate that we don't have to worry in a nice way. I mean that.
I am, because of the fact that we've been going through cycles in the past of growth and recession, and people kind of got used to that. But over the last 10 years, we haven't been in a recession. There's been talk about it, but we haven't actually made it that far. And every time they've talked about it, people go, "It's not happening there. It's not happening here." And they've been spending an awful lot of money. If we do hit a recession, it is going to hurt people because they have more debt and they have less savings to counter it.
Mainly, we're going to be pulled down by the U.S. because they're our biggest trading partners, and also the rest of our trading partners in Europe.
Yes and no. I'm a retired senior, so quite frankly, it's not going to impact my job or anything. But for all of those people who are working, and stand to lose their jobs, it's a huge, huge problem.
How many women have served as Deputy Prime Minister of Canada? 1, 3, or 5?
3.
I would say the same.
I'm going to go with 1.
Oh, that's a tough one. Definitely, it's at least 1, obviously. I want to say 3.
I'll say 1.
I'm hoping for 5, but I'm going to say it's 3.
I think it's 1 or 3. I think.
Which one?
I'll say 3.
It's 3.
It is?
Good for you.
Thank you, thank you.
The position of Deputy Prime Minister was created by Pierre Trudeau in 1977. The first person to occupy the job was Alan J. McEachern. It wasn't until April of 1996 that Jean Chrétien appointed Sheila Copps as the first woman to be Deputy Prime Minister. She held the job until June of 1997. Upon being sworn in as Prime Minister in December of 2003, Paul Martin appointed Anne McClellan as his Deputy Prime Minister. She would stay in the role until February 2006. But after 2006, the position of Deputy Prime Minister remained vacant for almost 14 years until Justin Trudeau resurrected the role in November 2019, appointing Chrystia Freeland as his Deputy PM. Freeland continues to serve in the role to the present day.
This fall has seen an alarming surge of respiratory infections right across the country, including COVID, which has put further strain on our healthcare system. Health officials will advise that wearing masks will help keep the spread of those infections down. But the provinces have stopped short in issuing mandatory masking mandates. We sent our cameras out to ask people if we should enforce this, or are we past the point of compulsory masking? Our question:
should COVID-19 mask mandates be reinstated?
I guess ultimately it's up to the government, but also some people feel more secure if they have the mask, and also too, it depends on their health. They know themselves best. If they feel they're most vulnerable and they want to continue wearing them, that's fine. I don't as much, but if the risk went up, I might reconsider that.
That's a tough question because I know so many people hate the masks, but I feel like it's like cold and flu season anyway, so it's not a terrible idea to bring it back. But I mean, if you give the people the option, more than half the people aren't going to wear it anyway, so I guess you kind of have to reinstate it. But I don't know if that's even possible anywhere because people have gone so far away from wearing masks that I don't know if anybody will really comply. But I don't think it's a bad idea.
I think that if it is recommended that they come back, that I would go with that. I trust our government's COVID policies, and I think it's based on medicine. So yes, I would.
For the best of my understanding right now, probably not. Because what I think is that if we get it, and I didn't get COVID yet, is that you can get through it, and that life goes on. And looking back, we missed a lot, but we saved a lot of lives. So that was necessary at the time. And now it seems that there aren't a lot of very, very serious cases coming out of COVID, and therefore I'm not sure. I feel that we don't need a mandate at this time.
I think science, like anything else, is what we must use to guide our decision making. I think early on in the pandemic, we had limited information, and the health agencies, provincially and nationally, had to make some pretty dramatic steps. And I think ultimately, we potentially could have done a better job of looking at the science and the data and adjusting things to both increase and decrease our restrictions. But that sometimes is tough at a population level to try and do that. People tend to cut corners if there's not a mandate. But that being said, we have to also respect people's civil liberties. And so I think there's that friction point in a democracy where, unlike China and other countries, we have to be looking at when are we impinging upon the rights and freedoms of the individual, but also to what extent is every individual their brother's keeper and sister's keeper?
I think it's important.
Why?
Because we still need to be careful, especially in public places, at concerts, on the bus, in stores.
I do not. I think that if you want to wear a mask to protect yourself, obviously you should be able to, but I don't think that everybody should be forced to if you don't want to.
No, I do not think it should be reinstated. I think those who are at risk should protect themselves, but otherwise, I think it's time people have to move on.
I think they should, only because you could be carrying the illness and not know it and spread it to people that have health issues. So, and I have a dad that's in a nursing home, and my mom just passed in a nursing home. So I think we got to protect our people that are more vulnerable to getting this disease.
I believe that if you are a little bit sick, there's nothing wrong with wearing a mask. If you're going to eliminate even a cold or flu from the general population, why not? But it's very important for our mental well-being, for us to be social creatures, but to be smart about it.
I think they certainly should be done where people who are qualified to know the best effect is. And if that's schools, that's that group. I don't think mandating it right across the board is it's going to cause more difficulty. But there are a lot of places, individual businesses, there's still places in town, there's 2 on Spring Garden Road that require masks when you walk indoors. So, and that's perfectly reasonable. I have a mask right here.
I think they should be kind of reinstated maybe on like on a rolling basis, as if cases start rising again, maybe hospitals are starting to get overwhelmed, then maybe you start using that tool, right? But I mean, like I personally wouldn't mind it, but I think a lot of people are burnt out of mask mandates, so maybe kind of using it as a tool when you really, really need to do so instead of using it as a blanket kind of tool that we used in the past.
I think that there's like 2 ways to answer the question. I think that in some ways, like I feel like it should be up to your own discretion. Like if you feel like you want to wear one, then definitely wear one. But I think if someone's wearing them, they shouldn't face any ridicule or anything for wearing one. So I think it's more like subjective to what you want to do, kind of.
So, and I think also it should really be taken into consideration how the numbers are increasing and how like health professionals are taking into account like how the numbers are rising per capita and like amount of people in each city. As of now, to be honest with you, I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't know the exact number of cases. I know they started to rise a little bit again recently, but I think in terms of that, if cases rise to a certain extent as they were previously during mask mandates, I absolutely think it should be reinstated.
Yeah,
but
if it gets to the point where it was,
exactly.
it definitely should
Yeah.
be. They were helpful when we had to wear them, so I think if it gets to that point again, then that's not a bad idea.
Yes.
Well, yes. On one side, I would say yes to prevent getting worse. And especially if you're around people who are more sensitive because they're like immunosufficient and all that stuff, just as a prevention way, yes, it should be reinstated. But, it should mandatory if it's sure you're going to be in contact with people who are more vulnerable. If not, it should be up to everybody's conscience to do so or not.
The COP Climate Summit recently wrapped up in Egypt following a year of extreme weather events around the world, a worsening energy crisis, and a continued debate over the use of fossil fuels, namely coal. Many will say Canada's carbon footprint is quite small compared to countries like India or China. Others will say every little bit helps, especially on the grassroots level. So we took our cameras out to ask people what they are doing to help make this planet a cleaner place to live. Our question:
What are you doing to tackle climate change?
Okay, well, I'm from Alberta, so climate is a big thing. My husband works in the refinery, so I think lots of our companies are doing a lot of good things. And myself, you just kind of walk more, right? I'm here in Ottawa, I'm walking, I'm enjoying it. So yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I mean, I think like everyone else, we're recycling. We try to purchase energy efficient, fuel efficient cars. We're turning off lights. We're, all these little things we're doing. I wouldn't say anything major, but all these little things that we can do that are within our control.
Well, I mean, I keep my carbon footprint pretty low. I don't drive. Take public transit. I cycle. I walk. I try to consume smartly. I don't buy a lot of things that I don't need. I don't travel a lot. So that is a good start.
I think it's a good change, like going away from the plastic bags and stuff like that. A few of my coworkers were talking about that today, like how you can't get plastic bags in stores anymore, kind of using the reusable ones. There's definitely more I can be doing, but to be honest, I haven't given it much thought.
Definitely, I mean, watching our carbon footprint ourselves as a household, recycling, using our bikes whenever we can instead of, using the car just to go a couple of kilometers. I grocery shop on my bicycle most of the time for about 6 or 7 months of the year. So just doing the things at home, I think that we can.
I'm trying to follow direction from the government, try to not buy products that they're not packaged with recyclable materials. Try to recycle in the household. I'm trying to drive less, cycle more, walk more.
I try to be responsible, reduce waste, do what's right for the environment, make solid choices. It's like reusable plastic bag or reusable bags, avoiding single-use plastics, things like that. Use a ceramic coffee mug instead of a paper alternative. As many of the small things as I can.
My personal life, I'm doing as much as I possibly can. Not just reduce, recycle, that sort of thing, but also thinking more globally about footprint and flying and driving and also wanting to support political parties that are aware, very aware, and doing something about it.
Well, we all do our bit. We look at opportunities to, energy conservation, home heating, things like that to reduce expenses. Obviously, driving and emissions, things like that. But just slowly doing our part.
I'm personally a vegetarian because I think the meat industry on the environment is something that people should consume less. And that's what I do personally.
How about yourself?
I would say I shop local, like for food-wise, farmers markets, also making sure where I
source my meat is like not from some supermarket. I like to get it more local.
Oh, well, I would say I'm trying to be as considerate about my waste in the household. So what I'm doing with recyclables, trying to not purchase things that I have to recycle. I would say, we actually downsized from a truck to a car. So I think just like even the simple small changes are going to have the biggest impact.
Currently, I'm working with a group who have developed some impeller technology that generates electricity from tidal waves, and we're looking to try and perhaps get that installed in another area that I know. So encouraging technology aspects of it. So some people might say that that's the technologist approach, and it's not really tackling climate change because you're looking at alternate power sources, et cetera, instead of decreasing our reliance on petrochemicals, etc. But we'll have to see.
Really trying to shop green and live green. I don't have a car, but I'm very lucky in this situation. I don't need one. And just to consider that the things that we buy, are they really necessary? And as far as keeping the temperature down in your house, and yeah, using products that are more naturally derived.
Well, I'm definitely more aware of my spending around heat and so on. So I think naturally in my life, I'm not using as much fuel as I used to. I look back at the times when the kids needed to get to soccer, and it was a tough go of it in terms of trying to keep thoughts around climate change. But this morning I'm just reading about sinkholes in the Arctic and the permafrost, and it's critical that each of us do whatever we can. So again, for me, it's driving less and trying to look at my temperature of my home and the small things I can control.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.